Hey freelance friends, welcome back. I'm Jennifer and I help freelancers simplify their tools and workflows so that they can work less, earn more, and avoid burnout. So today we are going to be talking about a really helpful option that is available in many of the AI chat tools these days. I'm going to be talking about it primarily from the standpoint of Microsoft Copilot, but I know that a similar feature is also available within ChatGPT if you use that, and several of the other different chat apps. Now, the reason that I'm discussing this is because I feel like freelancing quietly teaches you that the deliverable is never the hardest part of the job. The hardest part is getting your thinking straight before you even open up that slide deck or learning platform or script or whatever product you're working on. Especially when you create training content, which I can speak to. Credibility is everything because you're not just producing materials, you're shaping how people learn, behave, and make decisions at work. And that's where I feel that the researcher agent in Microsoft Copilot fits into the real rhythm of our freelance work. So, researcher agent is a specialized option that you have if you do have a Copilot Premium subscription. It allows you to basically utilize your own research assistant. Researcher acts as a specialized helper that can go and do a real deep dive on the topic that you're looking to gain more information about. It allows you to drill down into the sources that you use to find that information. So it is versatile and it is very helpful. It's going to provide a level of detail well above and beyond what regular Copilot chat provides. Now, as I mentioned, I just mentioned the researcher agent, which is the name that Copilot uses for its deep research tool. But it's probably worth saying out loud again that Microsoft Copilot isn't the only place where this kind of deep research is showing up. As I mentioned, other tools, including ChatGPT, now offer comparable research focus modes that go beyond the quick answers and the surface level output. This shift isn't really about highlighting what one platform does better over the other. More so, it's about a broader change in how AI is evolving and some of the options that we do have available to us. These research-forward tools are starting to support the kind of thinking that freelancers rely on. Basically, synthesis, context building, and informed judgment. So the real differentiator is not the tool itself or the platform it's hosted on, but it's how well it fits into your workflow and the quality of thinking it helps you to produce and protect. So in the case of researcher, it isn't designed to help you write faster. It's designed to help you think better before you write anything at all. So instead of bouncing between several articles that you are using for your research, maybe half remembering some of the content or the frameworks that you've encountered while you're reviewing them, along with various client notes, researcher is able to pull information together into a structured, source-aware report that supports your real judgment, not just output for output's sake. And this really matters when you're brought in as the expert, which is typically our role when we're a freelancer. So imagine a freelance learning designer hired to create internal training on AI usage for non-technical employees. Obviously, I chose this option because it's near and dear to my heart, but all of you will be able to extrapolate out and think of something that you could utilize as a prompt that would really apply to you. Now, in this scenario that I'm presenting, my client doesn't want theory. They want something practical, responsible, and very well aligned with how their people actually work. They have asked for training that addresses what AI is, where it fits into daily tasks, and what boundaries employees need to understand. So before I sit down and write a single learning objective for this eventual training, I would ground myself and I would want to know how organizations are currently introducing AI to general employees outside of the perspective that I already know about, common risks and misconceptions that non-technical staff have, what themes show up repeatedly in credible workplace guidance, and where training trends tend to oversimplify or overcomplicate various topics. So even though this is my wheelhouse, this is my area of expertise, there's always more insight to gain. And this is the invisible work, is getting this insight so that you can use the information to make decisions that drive you forward on the project. Now, it's easy to rush when timelines are tight and maybe overlook some of this pertinent information. And that's where researcher comes in, because with researcher, the process starts very intentionally. I can go to researcher from within Copilot and ask something like, summarize common approaches and challenges in training non-technical employees on safe, ethical AI use in the workplace. Focus on practical guidance and learning considerations. Then, as those of you who are viewing the video version of this podcast can see, you're going to be given some options that include selecting the sources that you want researcher to use. Now, of course, because researcher specifically is built into the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, I have the option of using web resources or using those M365 data resources that I have access to. Because I want it to get information wherever it can, in this case, I'm going to leave all of the sources available, although you can see that you can easily toggle some of them off if you wish. Now, after a minute or so, Copilot comes back and asks me some clarifying questions. In this specific example, it asked me if this is for a general cross-industry audience or if it should emphasize a particular context, such as corporate knowledge workers, frontline operations staff, or regulated environments like healthcare and finance. It also asked me if I wanted the guidance framed more around policy and risk mitigation or everyday usage skills. And finally, it asked if it should allow the summary to assume that no prior AI exposure at all, or should it assume a basic familiarity with tools like chat assistants. So I provided it a little bit of insight and said that I wanted it to emphasize corporate knowledge workers and assume that they have basic knowledge of chat assistance. Now, Copilot also asks me how in-depth I'd like my output. It gives me the option, as of the time of this recording, to select under 5 pages of output or over 5 pages of output. Again, because I really want a deep dive, I'm going to choose over 5 pages. Now, it does take a while for researcher to process. Again, this is providing an up level of the information that Copilot Chat would provide. This is basically like a super powered chat. So it could take anywhere from 5 minutes for this to process up through a half hour if you ask a very complex prompt. So again, for those of you who are watching the video version of this, I'm really going to speed up that processing time because none of us would want to sit through that, to show you the level of detail that you are provided in the results. And as you can see, as promised, it is a superior level of detail. Researcher Agent is an A+ research assistant, in my opinion. And it also provides insight into the sources that it used so that you can validate the information that it provides to make sure that it's accurate. And of course, you could take a look at those sources to see what else they have to say if you wish. So Researcher does what freelancers usually have to do late at night when we would rather be sleeping or watching Netflix sometimes, and that's gather relevant information, compares perspectives, and organize thinking into something coherent. Now, as you saw, what comes back from Researcher isn't a list of tips. It's a super structured narrative. It gives you themes. Risks are explained within the context of the topic that you're discussing. The sources are visible, and the freelancer can decide what's credible enough to influence a training decision. So the work feels different. Now, in this specific example that I showed, instead of guessing what employees should know, I can design a training around what actually confuses people. And instead of relying on generic examples, I can better align the content with real workplace patterns. And this way, if I do encounter an issue where a stakeholder ever pushes back asking why I included a certain topic, I don't have to just rely on my intuition to make the justification. I actually have an informed judgment. And again, in my opinion, this is why Researcher really earns a place for freelancers like us when we are working on an upcoming project. Now, of course, Researcher doesn't do everything for you. In my case, it doesn't replace my instructional expertise. That's still a key factor in this process. But Copilot does protect it, and it handles the cognitive groundwork so that I or other freelancers in my circumstance can focus on learning design, clarity, tone, relevance, the things that clients can't automate and shouldn't want to. So you should recognize that the Researcher Agent from inside the M365 Copilot environment doesn't function like a typical chatbot. It's more like that research partner who is showing you all their work, and all you have to do is review the output, refine the lens, and decide what becomes a scenario, a discussion prompt, or a boundary statement in the training. And of course, if for any reason researcher didn't give you the complete picture that you want, you can always go back and ask it to provide that additional information. So in summary, I think that in this podcast, I try to show what sustainable expertise looks like. I want you to scramble less. Try more deliberate thinking and fewer assumptions to get those strong foundations where you can really build and create a massive, hugely beautiful structure. Remember, it's not these tech tools that make you valuable as a freelancer, but they do make it easier to do the kind of work that others value and depend on. And when your name is associated with the work you do, that support matters. So thanks so much for tuning in today. I would really appreciate it if you share, like, and subscribe to this channel. It would really help people to know that we're out here. And again, I would personally appreciate it very much. Until then, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.